5:30, so call the meeting to order with roll call. Okay.
Ed Myrie,
Yes.
Cynthia Gray,
Here.
Shane Feldmeyer,
Here.
Ed Holland,
Here.
Jim Weezer,
Here.
Larry Haffner,
Here.
Josh Grant.
Here. Want to read the notice, Marty?
First one is for Paul and Joan Wisty. Notice of public hearing. Please take notice that an application has been made by Paul and Joan Wisty, 409 South Grant Street, Houston, Minnesota, 55943, for a conditional use permit to place a dwelling in an agricultural district, section 14 to 14.3, conditional uses, subdivision 1, subsection 10, in Black Hammer Township. Part of the eastern half of the southwest border, section 5, township 102, range 7, Houston County, Minnesota, parcel 01-0056-001. Said applicant standing and making application is as the owner of said described lands. Hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room, City of Caledonia, Minnesota, at 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, August 24th, 2023. All persons having an interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application. Comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department, 304 South Marshall Street, Caledonia, Minnesota, 55921, or emailed to martin.herrick@co.houston.mn.us. Must be received by Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. Comments in regard to the petition received by the state will be part of the public record and will be made available for review by the Planning Commission prior to the meeting. Houston County Planning Commissions and Martin Herrick zoning administrator.
Is the applicant care to come forward and just kind of describe the project? Yeah, if you come up here, that's good.
Oh, the hot seat.
What'd you say? Get the hot seat?
Okay.
Well, this is kind of a reboot. We had this, we were given an app or a permit here in 1996, because at that time, 1998. Yeah, at that time, we were going to put a log cabin up there, and so we came before the zoning commission and they gave us this application. And then, so we put in a slab, waited for the thing, and then when we got the log house tore down, it was a lot more damage than we originally had thought. And so we were never able to really find anybody to fix it or get logs to fix it. And so the project just kind of got put on hold. And this summer, our nephew built this little, I think you have a picture of it there. Yeah, that little cabin building, 16 by 20. And he's wanting to sell it. And so we have the slab that it would fit on, and we have the lake acreage down in Yucatan. So we just decided, and he did a really nice job, and we kind of want to keep it in the family. So we just decided, so we talked to Martin, and he said we'd probably have to go through this process again. And so that's why we're here.
It's kind of for recreational use, though. It's not really going to be.
No, we're not going to live there. It's just going to be recreational, pretty much, for now, at one time. The only reason we're looking for the main reason, I guess we're looking for the dwelling is that it allows us to put like electricity on the land or something. I don't anticipate doing a sewer. I think we'll probably just put a compost toilet in the cabin. And
You have water?
no, and I don't know if we will put water there. I don't really see a need for it. It's going to be basically for us, 30 years ago, things look different than when you're 70 years old. So I mean, right now it's, basically for us and for our kids to use and stuff. If they want to spend the weekend up there, that type of. So it'll be pretty low key.
So it must be the only dwelling in the quarter.
Yeah.
So that would work that way too.
Do you have an access road to that? Now that you've got a cement slab there, you must have had access to it.
Yeah, when they redid that road, in Yucatan there, they put a driveway in for us back then.
Off of 4? Off of
off
four?
of four.
Okay,
So there's a driveway into the land with culvert and all that in it. And actually, when they redid that road back in the thirties or forties, I don't know when it was done, but that road used to run along the hill there. And the old road bed is still there, and that's where we put our slab, was right on that old road bed. And so we just will come off of County 4 and then go up onto that old road bed and back to the building site.
no, you have to redo the road to make that it's less than 12% grade, or
No, the road's basically level.
That's actually not too.
it is?
decent.
Yeah.
And then the first page that you have. That is the the addendum that I gave you, the extras, that. Front of the property, so when you're looking from left to right, you're starting at the low point of. The flow line from the highway, in other words, coming down the bank and then the low point, and then you're starting to transition back up, so that shows you what the slope is. And that is.
This building got skids underneath it or?
Yeah, it's on skids right now. And we just intend to put it on the slab, and the building's 16 by 16, the slab is 16 by 30. So the building will fit there, and we'll have another 10, 11 feet we can use for like little patio area behind. So. Eventually we may build a little outbuilding there for tool storage or something, lawnmower or whatever we need to put in there. That would probably be just on skids or something too. Something. I don't, unless she's got the plans, of course, she may have. But. This kind of evolved in the last 3 months or so. And so.
The lot itself is 3 acres, and what is actually considered a buildable lot out of the 3 acres?
It's about, I think. It's about 1.1.
1.54 acres.
About 1.5 acres.
Yeah, 1.05.
Okay. Oh, 1.0.
So you're gonna-
Any other questions of the applicant here?
So it looks like the comment received from Mr. Halverson was about the slope. of it.
Right.
But in this is how you address that by looking,
What we did is we went out, once they got it brushed out of that. Then we were able to see it, so we looked at min topo, which is kind of verification. Then what we also did is we went out and used the level and the survey rod and used the slab as the bench to define, and did the downslope and then the upslope. And surprisingly, they actually matched fairly close. With what they came up with what the total was showing, but they're certainly below 24%. They're in terms of where the distance is. The uniqueness about it is that it's the run out distance that starts to show it. Because if you took an individual section, like from one measurement to another, there could be a point where it's steeper. And I did talking with Jeff about that is that I went through and I checked them individually from section to section, which is not how it's defined, but just to see the worst case scenario. And it took 40 feet from the slab up the hill before you encountered a 24% slope. Well, the setback is 40 feet from the block definition. This didn't meet that definition.
and one of the concerns was sewer, but if that's not in the plans anyway.
It's not in our plan right now. But, down the road,
In the future.
if the kids would or got sold or something at one time.
I mean, a dwelling certainly has that option.
Yep.
But we're not looking at it for that.
Any other questions? I think that's what we need to hear from you guys, so if you want.
Anybody else set to speak?
Yeah, are there any other comments?
You guys could go sit back down, or somebody else had something to say, they are welcome to come up now.
Yeah, I can,
You want to just come forward?
I'll just come
forward.
My name is Jeff Alverson. I'm the neighboring landowner. So I submitted the initial comments, I guess shortly after the notice came out. And so expressed concerns about the slope and just in general with the site. There's a relatively limited area for a dwelling. It being in a shoreland zone also created some concerns. And so those were kind of the primary causes and drivers for my comments and talking with Martin over the last couple weeks. He's alleviated, I guess, my concerns on the slope certainly. And then I did have a chance to talk with Paul and Joanne earlier and they kind of reaffirmed what their plans are in terms of really just focused on putting the cabin there, not looking to build a full modern home with, modern amenities, septic being also an item of my concern and knowing that's further down the road and not being applied for here at this time. So I have no other concerns and am comfortable with what they're planning to do. So
Thank you.
Good you had a chance to visit. That's a lot of times how
Yeah.
things get figured out.
Yep. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much.
all right.
That's what it should be.
So any other discussion on the proposal? or-
I'll make a motion that we take findings 8, 9. 12, 13, 14. Out of the findings.
You have a second to that motion?
Second,
All those in favor, we can just say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we take those out.
Just 1 second here. You said he was gonna put electricity in this?
That was an option. yeah.
With cabins, I don't think.
This
we're-
isn't.
This is a dwelling.
He's going over.
Oh, this is a dwelling, okay.
Okay.
All right, I'm
Actually.
stand corrected.
You're absolutely right on.
Any other discussion before we begin? the finding? Any further findings?
See the finding? Number one, that the proposed use conforms to the Houston County land use. Staff analysis. Single-family non-farm dwellings are conditionally allowed in the agricultural protected district. This protects agricultural interests, which is a primary goal of comprehensive land use plan.
All those that agree with the staff analysis of number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number two, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Staff analysis. The applicant indicates the dwelling is for recreational purposes. This demonstrates a need for the proposed use.
All those that agree with the analysis of number 2, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number three, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Staff analysis. The dwelling will not have a water supply or a septic system and will have minimal impact on water quality.
All those that agree with the staff analysis of number 3, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number four, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Staff analysis. The dwelling footprint is minimal and uses an existing foundation and will not substantially influence the quantity of water runoff.
All those that agree with the staff analysis of number 4, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number five, that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. While the Festina silt loam is a prime ag soil that has limited values based on its extent, the site has not been used for agricultural purposes. Foundation of the proposed dwelling has been in place for approximately 25 years and appears to be satisfactory condition to build up.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number six, that potential pollution hazards have been addressed, and standards have been met. Staff analysis. There are no anticipated pollution hazards.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Number seven, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff analysis. Actually, I have this different. No modern amenities will be installed. This is from County Highway 4. Electricity is a mod.
You kind of have to.
So,
And this is potential utilities, right?
right,
Or they're not,
it just,
Yeah.
yes.
That should be it.
So how would you guys like to?
potential
with the
utilities
exception of
down the road.
electricity.
Could do that.
Just had to have the front end say with the exception.
Or at the end,
Yeah,
or
Excuse me, that's why I asked, you know, what this dwelling was gonna be. Cause we had a case or two in Yucatan Township. Where the guy bought a 40-acre lot. And he sold 30 acres off of it. And we had to go to him and tell him, we couldn't give you a permit to even fix a septic system. At the time. You know, and so. Is he, if he's potentially going to put a house there someday, does he have the a way to acquire 38.5 acres?
in this instance, it's with the conditional use permit for a single family non-farm dwelling. That you have to have an open quarter, but you don't have to have the 40 acres.
All you need is a buildable lot.
You need to build. a lot.
Okay,
That's the,
As long as it's not on another 40.
okay, all right.
But it does lock up that 40. This will be the
Exactly.
only dwelling that can have
Yeah.
40.
So if we limit what they can have for utilities, will they have to come back and redo the?
for
conditional
the
use?
septic, they would be, well, true.
See, that with a 1 acre, an acre and a half, they're not gonna be able to put a septic in there.
You could do a holding tank.
Now you could do a holding tank if you wanted.
what, with it, with an acre? With an acre and a half, they can get a septic tank in there.
With a drain field.
You probably have to go with the mound.
Yeah, they may have to go with a mound.
Yeah,
The minimum design, I believe, would be for 2 bedrooms, which would make it 300 gallon per day flow, even though you're not gonna get that close. So that's gonna kick you into a certain size of the whole. Is part of how that would play out in terms of the, you know, the likely situation. And
Okay.
yes, they would have to get a septic permit for that, but right, in terms of, does that change the conditions of the dwelling? I mean, dwellings are allowed to be
holding tanks.
modern amenities. So,
Well, that's why I'm saying
Right.
if we limit what they can have for utilities at this point, they'll have to come back and redo the permit, won't they?
Well, that's what I was thinking. Does this prevent them from doing modern amenities?
well, I guess in the staff analysis where I was going with it was this is what they're currently proposing. It wasn't in the sense of that it's a conditional requirement later, as far as that goes, but
Can you look at Minnetonka David Beatty's number 7 on Minnetonka?
If that, if it's willing, so if you have,
More or less, if he gets this one tonight, does he has to come back for, he wants to put in a septic and.
Yeah, if you wanna put a septic in, you'd have to come back.
Well, you have to come back for that anyway.
Yeah.
yeah,
Or electricity, that's, he's already got that permission, so.
yeah, I mean, the other.
it for
Right.
now.
Right. I see what it is.
We're just wasting time and discussing something, because that's gonna be a part of
Mhm.
See, that's why I've never heard of them letting them a dwelling go on a 1 acre lot. That's, to me, that's was never heard of before.
Can't really do it.
You know, I don't think we can do this.
I think acre is minimum, isn't it?
Yeah, the buildable lot definition is for the ag protection district is 1 acre. And then you have an allowance for 10% deviation. Actually, so it's down to 20. It's actually as low as it goes, and that would, that's with the conditional use permit for the non-farm.
So we're not really limiting the amenities that can have there, just that the sewer, if you needed a drain field, would limit it because of the logistics.
Well, they could look
Decide.
at that once they develop, once they decide to have a septic that they would have. to
Is,
do.
is this building 200 square feet or more?
Yeah, it's more. than
Yeah,
200.
it's just
360.
Okay. Then I think we gotta stick with the size for the septic and everything.
Well, the septic size is based on the number of bedrooms.
Yeah,
In theory, and usually the minimum design is for two. 300 gallon.
is he building a 2-bedroom house then?
No. It's not even close.
4-bedroom?
No.
No, just.
1 bed.
Yes.
If you give them a conditional use permit for a dwelling, they could in the future build a house. or
Yeah.
A
Mhm.
full-fledged house.
That is gonna take a new building,
Right, then it would also take a new septic system
Correct.
permit
Mhm.
and that design would come in at that.
at that time. Right, that's a future problem.
Right.
Wouldn't he be required to buy 38.5 acres?
No,
It's 40 acres.
All they have to have is an acre.
This doesn't sound right. Cause when I was on the town board in Yucatan, and if they didn't buy 40 acres, they couldn't put a house up.
That's what people understood, but that's not true.
That's not true. You can have,
I explained that, I don't know how many times. Everybody thought you gotta have 40 acres. You gotta have 40 acres open.
okay,
Within that 40, you can have one, you can have 1 acre. And build on it.
but only one dwelling per 40.
But nobody else in that quarter.
Okay, well, this is what happened in Yucatan that time. The guy built, he bought 40 acres. He built the house. He put a septic in. The septic wasn't very good. So he got a permit to get the septic repaired. But in the meantime, he sold 30-some acres off.
Fine.
You know what? We came to him and we told him, unless you buy that 30 acres back, you can't fix your septic system.
Well, did he have enough room for a drain field on that acre?
I don't know.
That's what's
see,
gonna
and so
determine.
often, it's not just a question of the room, it's a question of the soils. Meeting the criteria.
Yeah, for,
Yeah.
So you've got that part too, you know, because usually the system.
See, maybe we did something wrong back then, but we thought we were doing it right. Because we thought that you were gonna put a house in, you're gonna own 40 acres.
yeah,
Right now, you're saying that's not true.
a lot of people thought that.
That- Larry was involved in walking down the press all the time, so we've kind of been there.
We've never done that in Yucatan before.
Well, we've had a few like this.
Well, let's move on because he's not talking.
Yeah, what we could propose would be all utilities will be the responsibility of the applicant.
There you go.
All those
Does that
in
work?
favor of that revision, anybody like that?
So
Aye.
does-
Aye.
I
So,
have a question about that,
Okay.
before I say aye. So does that mean that all utilities are permitted?
It would be, yeah,
As well, they should.
It's a dwelling.
Okay,
it's a dwelling but they are, that's the nuance between a dwelling, yeah.
but they still have to be approved. Like a.
Well, I
septic.
mean, if they're by code,
Mhm, right,
then they're allowed. I
mhm,
mean, the building permit will certainly
yes,
get after certain, in addition.
Okay.
Meaning the permit for the septic or the state would license the, or, you know, approve the electrical connections.
okay, falls under that.
so I guess we're, back to,
Going-
All utilities will be the responsibility of the applicant.
you want to just read number 7 over, we'll start over and then read that again.
Absolutely.
True.
Number 7, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff analysis, all utilities will be the responsibility of the applicant.
And do you need anything in there, the access from county employee, you want to leave that in there, because that's sort of pertinent too.
Mhm.
And we can do that too, and we can say, in access, okay, sorry, over. Staff analysis, all utilities will be the responsibility of the applicant and access is from county highway 4.
I think that makes sense. So all in favor of number 7, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I am,
Okay, so now let's,
Sorry, I didn't.
Oh.
Wayne, you know, it wasn't.
well,
unanimous, so, and that's,
I never heard
not
of this
unanimous.
until tonight. And I know the guys in the township are gonna be really shocked when. You know,
I don't know how many times I had. You can have 40 acres and one guy in the corner's got an acre. He builds there first. The rest of the 40 is off limits.
even if he doesn't own it, right?
Yeah,
if they're
I've got
granted
that
the conditional
confusion.
use.
Yeah.
That's the
That's
step.
the original.
Mhm. If you got a 40, Wayne, and you wanna build your little, let's say this is a 40, and you wanna put a house over here. You can buy, like, put an acre, acre and a half, and you can put your house on that corner. But nobody else can build on that 40.
Yeah.
So you don't have to own the 40, but that's just how
Right.
the 40s are set
Yeah,
up.
you gotta be careful with the term.
Wait,
There's a quarter rule for density. And then there's a requirement for 40 acres. The 40 acres falls under the farm part of it for the single family dwelling.
Yeah.
Then there's a single family non-farm dwelling. So there's two types of dwellings, and then there's the farm part of the situation, and then the non-farm.
and then the problem sometimes you have, somebody has 40 contiguous acre. I
Right.
think that satisfies it, doesn't, but it has to be quarter, not just 40 acre contiguous.
so you're still gonna vote negative on that one?
Yeah, I'm still gonna vote.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
So. Number 10,
Let's see.
we still.
Number 10. That the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. Staff analysis, the terrain creates limited view shed to the neighbors and the closest dwelling is greater than 1,000 feet away. The addition of a dwelling is not anticipated to negatively affect the use of the property.
All those that agree with the analysis of number 10, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property or predominant uses in the area. Staff analysis. The predominant land use is agriculture and forest, the continuation of which will not be impacted by the dwelling. The area continues to be woodland and the dwelling should not impact neighboring landowner's ability to utilize their properties for existing uses.
All those that agree with the analysis of number 11, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff analysis, public health, safety, morals, and general welfare are not anticipated to be impacted.
All those that agree with the analysis of number 15, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll make a motion to accept the findings.
Second,
I'll second it.
motion been made and seconded, we'll do a roll call.
Greg Myrie,
Yes.
Cindy Wright,
Yes.
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes,
Ed Hamel,
Yes.
Jim Weezer,
Yes.
Larry Haffner.
I have a question. Do we have to be unanimous?
I think they just have to have a quorum for each.
Majority.
Okay,
Majority of everything.
okay, yes, I'm okay. Hey,
Josh Grant.
yes.
Try to get you, Jim.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
So let's see. Anybody want to make a motion to recommend approval to the county board?
Go through the conditions first.
That would be good.
Recommendations, is that what we got?
Yes. Number 1, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Number 2, the county may enter onto the premises at reasonable times and in a reasonable manner to ensure the permit holder is in compliance with the conditions and all other applicable statutes, rules, and ordinances.
Everybody agree with those conditions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the conditional use permit for a dwelling in the agriculturally agricultural protected district.
I'll second it.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to move this on to county board. Be roll call.
Yes. Craig Myrie,
Yes.
Cindy Wright,
Yes,
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Ed Allen,
Yes.
Tim Reed,
Yes.
Ray Hackman,
Yeah,
So that goes to the county board, when, Martin?
No meeting next week, so I mean the week after.
So. Should conclude that. Good luck.
Thank you.
I did not know that.
It's completely.
it's, a lot of people have that. I've heard that before.
Our whole town working.
Well, I think there's a lot of people gonna get in with this new land use plan. There's a lot of change.
We sent Rick Frank out there to talk to that. Frank.
You get your order. Good luck.
Buy that land back. It's just something.
Where's that? Is that where-
did he have to go onto that other property?
Yeah.
Well, then he had, he couldn't go off his acre.
Yeah.
If he needed to move, then he had to buy.
That's,
Move on to number two.
yes.
oh.
You want to read the finding of the notice? Notice
I
that.
don't know.
Notice of public hearing, please take notice that an application has been made by Aaron and Amanda Mittendorf, 1342-429, County 17, Caledonia, Minnesota, 55921, for a conditional use permit to replace a dwelling in an agricultural district. Section 14 to 14.3, conditional use of subdivision 1, subsection 10, in Wilmington Township on the following premises to wet. Part of the western half of the northeast quarter, the southeast quarterly road and part of the northern half of the northwest quarter, southeast quarter, section 23, township 101, range 6, Houston County, Minnesota, parcel 150258000. Said applicant standing and making application is as fee owner of said described lands. Hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room, City of Caledonia, Minnesota, at 5:50 p.m. on Thursday, August 24th, 2023. All persons having interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying of said application. Comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department, 304 South Marshall Street, Caledonia, Minnesota, 55921, or email to martin.herrick@co.houston.mn.us. Must be received by Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. Comments in regard to the petition received by this date will be made in public record, would be made available for review by the Planning Commission prior to the meeting. Houston County Planning Commission, Martin Herrick, zoning administrator.
Okay. The applicants want to come forward and explain the project.
Just replace the old house that we have right now.
You gotta get in the hot seat.
Sorry.
No problem.
And building a new house, we have a little more room for ourselves. Eventually, after our house is done, we'll tear down the old house, and then there's actually 2 other buildings that will be tore down as well. So then we just the house and then far northeast building that'll be left once it's done. So
So the old house is just kind of done its duty. And
It's
yeah,
a
yeah.
100-year-old farmhouse that's sagging in the middle. We have
Mhm.
2 young rambunctious boys that need some room to play, so.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. Any questions of the applicant here?
In the packet, it mentioned there might be a question about the septic system would have to be upgraded. Or how many bedrooms
Well,
were you
you're-
planning?
You're adding.
Yeah, we will be. We'll have a new septic, yeah.
Other questions? I think it's pretty straightforward of what you're up to. So-
Well, do you have to tear down this other one of these buildings?
What's that?
You have to tear down one of these buildings before you can build?
So the lower one, yeah. Lower, I guess would be the southeast one.
Okay.
Longer.
It looks like it on the diagram.
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we take number 8 out of the findings, number 9. 12, 13, and 14.
Second to that motion,
Second,
and all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You guys like to sit back there, I guess you can return if you want.
Sounds good.
Thank you. So, go ahead with the findings, I guess.
Number one, that the proposed use conforms to the county land use. Single-family non-farm dwellings are conditionally allowed in the agricultural protection district. This protects agricultural interests, which is a primary goal of comprehensive land use.
All those that agree with the staff analysis, number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number two, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Staff analysis, the applicant indicates the dwelling is for replacement of an existing single-family home. This demonstrates a need for the proposed use.
All those in favor of the analysis of number 2, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number three, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Will be used with the septic system being revised. The new dwelling will have less impact on water supply and water quality than the existing dwelling.
All those that agree with the analysis of number 3, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number four, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Staff analysis, replacement of the existing dwelling which will be torn down will not substantially influence the quantity of water runoff.
All those that agree with the analysis of number 4, say aye. Any opposed?
Number five, that soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use. Staff analysis, with the existing dwelling being removed and replaced, the soil conditions will not be a concern other than locating a second absorption area. Soil conditions are adequate for the proposed use.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number six, that potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. Staff analysis, there are no anticipated pollution hazards.
All those that agree with the analysis of number 6, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number seven, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff analysis, raising the old structure and replacing with the new dwelling will not require new utilities or roadway revisions with the exception of the septic system.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 10, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. Staff analysis, the new dwelling will be one-story dwelling versus the existing two-story dwelling, and will have a lower profile and less view shed. Closest neighbor is located 580 feet away. The addition of a dwelling is not anticipated to negatively affect the use of neighboring properties.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for the predominant uses in the area. Staff analysis, the predominant land use is agriculture and the continuation of which will not be impacted by the dwelling. The area continues to be agricultural and the dwelling should not impact neighboring landowners' ability to utilize their property for existing uses.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 15, that site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff analysis, public health, safety, morals, and general welfare are not anticipated to be impacted.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm going to make a motion to accept the findings.
I'll make a motion to accept the findings that is presented.
Second.
I'll second
Let's do a roll call on this. Okay.
Greg Myrie,
it. Yes.
Cindy Wright,
yes.
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Ed Hamel,
Yes.
Tim Weezer,
Yes.
Barry Hoffner,
Yes.
Josh Green.
Yes.
You want to go through the conditions of
Number one, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Number two, the county may enter onto the premises at reasonable times and in a reasonable manner to ensure the permit holder is in compliance with the conditions in all other applicable statutes.
If we agree with those conditions, would somebody care to make a motion to recommend this to the county board.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead, Wayne, again.
So a second, Wayne. I'll second it. Okay, you're first, I think.
Put Wayne down as making the motion, I'll second it.
Yeah, we'll do a roll call.
Roll call. Greg Myrie,
Yes,
Cindy Ray,
Yes.
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Dan Hamel,
Yes.
Jim Weezer.
Yes.
Jay Hoffman,
Yes.
thank you, guys.
Same thing as the last. It'll make the September 4th Board of Commissioners. Let's say, well, are we getting? Wow.
That's the way, that's the way we planned it.
Exactly, so we'll start with.
Notice of public hearing. Please take notice that an application has been made by Chris Peavy to JNC Farms Incorporated, 103 Second Avenue Southeast, Spring Grove, Minnesota, 55974 for amendments to the conditional use permits number 417 and 418 in the agricultural district. Sections 4 through 14.3 conditional uses, subdivision 1, subsection 19, and section 27 through 27.8 mineral extraction, subdivision 7, subsection 3 in Spring Grove Township on the following premises to it. Part of the northeast quarter, section 20, township 101, range 7, Houston County, Minnesota, parcel 1302550001. Said applicant standing and making application is as fee owner of said described lands. The hearing on this application will be held at the Houston County Commissioners Room, City of Caledonia, Minnesota, at 6:10 p.m. on Thursday, August 24th, 2023. All persons having an interest in the matter will be given the opportunity to submit comments relative to the granting or denying this application. Comments should be mailed to the Environmental Services Department, 204 South Marshall Street, Caledonia, Minnesota, 55921, or email to martin.eric@co.houston.mn.us. Must be received by Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. Comments on the regarding application received by this date will be part of the public record and will be made available for review by the Planning Commission prior to the meeting. Houston County Planning Commission by Martin Eric, zoning administrator.
Would the applicant care to come forward and explain the project?
Yep, I'm Chris Preby. I'm the consultant for the owner of Pruning and Bruning or Skyline, the people that operate the quarry. And what we're really doing is, I think dates wise, 2015, I believe we did an EAW on the quarry. It's been a quarry for a long time. You guys updated your ordinance to not allow quarries over 40 acres, and this was over 40 at the time. So that's the reason there's a CUP 417 and 418. We split it into two parcels just to make it work with the ordinance. An oversight at the time was in the 50-foot property line setback. They've been mining that area for 50 years, and somebody had called and said, hey, on the GIS map, it looks like they're mining within 50 feet between the two quarries. So part of your ordinance allows a waiver for that 50-foot setback if the two property owners agree to it. So what we were going to try to do is just sign that waiver and record it working with Marty. The quarry to the west that is owned by Bruning, basically, they don't have a condition.
Still.
MEK, which is Bruning, Keith Bruning, but they own it. It's just their development company. Okay, say, so Keith Bruning owns it. So their conditional use permit doesn't have this specific condition to stay 50 feet from the property line. It just says it needs to meet the ordinance. So we have that waiver signed by Kurt and recorded. We couldn't do it in this instance because there's specific.
Yeah, I can search on. What
Go
it
ahead.
comes down to is that there's kind of a hierarchy to stipulations and documents. Code is one thing, but when a condition in a permit says specifically, this is the activities that occurred, that catches everything. So by virtue of the 50 foot going all the way around the perimeter of the facility, not just eliminating the area where there's the contact between the two, we have to modify that condition to say it's only going around the areas that are not part of this. And so then it would default back to the code requirement, which is what Chris referenced in section 27, that says if both parties agree to it, you're allowed to encroach. And so so in other words, for 417 and 418, the condition, that's where the amendment part is coming from, is the amendment is reflecting the revision in defining the perimeter that the setback applies to. And that's it.
And I don't know what map you gave them, but I can bring up I have 3 maps that you can kind of look at, 2004, 2014, 2023. If you get earlier than that, it's kind of blurry by the time you zoom in to see about the area we're talking about. I can bring them up, you guys can look at them, or
They were in the board.
were they in the board packet? Okay, so
They included in the board packet.
You wanna hold up the one, the picture that was supposed to be here?
Where's the newest one?
So- yeah, so
2023.
that one says 2023. So if you look at the area, I would say you can see the CUP 379 where they're extracting sand. Just east of that, there's 2 yellow lines. In between those 2 yellow lines, do you have the older ones as well in their packet or not?
I gave the 2 that this.
2014 is here.
Okay, so
Almost 2004.
yeah, okay, so you have them. So it's an area that's been used for stockpiling, overburden and unsaleable, but technically that makes it part of the mining process because it's extracted material and stockpiled material. So talking to Marty, the easiest way to clean this up was this process to get both parties to agree that it's been there for a while, but we want it on paper that says it's okay to do. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. All other setbacks, house setbacks, everything else would remain. It's just this 50-foot section. It's technically 100-foot because it's both property lines between the 2 quarries would be waived by the ordinance.
Yeah, it's a mineable material probably too, right?
I don't know what's under it, but we're trying to clean up what was, because it's considered part of the mining process. It's something we should have did in 2020 or 2019 when we were writing the ordinance. We should have had these waivers included in that process. I know Aaron and I talked about it at that time, but it was a roadway and it was where they were stockpiling materials, so it just didn't happen. But at this point, I think somebody called and had mentioned that they were mining over the property lines. So by aerial photo, you can see that there's obviously disturbance there. So talking to you, this was the easiest or the best way to try and just to make them compliant with the ordinance and their permit.
One other thing that maybe covered is the drainage from the 2 are staying separate. There's not going to be a cross connection with this, and I included a cross section to show it's going to stay elevated. So the numbers for CUP 417, 418 will change. So the JNC stuff, the drainage on that is going to stay separate
There's
from the booming part, and we'll make it sure that stays now.
you have the one I gave you that has the 2 house setbacks. I had I might have just in one of our meetings. There's a house, if you look at the 2023 one, there's a house to the west of the Bruning, well, the whole quarry. If you look at the Bruning, which is not the one we're talking about, just so you can see the 1,000-foot setback just barely touches this property. So they wouldn't get into that. They don't get into the 1,000-foot setback to the nearest neighbor, basically. So they're still going to be mining more than 1,000 feet from the nearest house, which is
that
what
off
you're.
of County Highway 8?
Yep, the one, there's a house just on
Yep.
County Highway just to the west. So they're not proposing to ask for a variance to that or anything like that. They're gonna keep that. You can see the other property is also keeping that 1,000-foot radius at the map right in front.
Who complained about this?
I don't know if somebody
Well,
complained or
I
just.
call it a complaint. It's basically, it was a very fair person came in and said, the conditions of their approvals, 1 through 8, require certain activities. And so I went to the other one and said, for these conditions, where are you at with your survey? And so it's like, and that's where the discussion started to evolve, you know, because it's a case of part of their situation with the 50-foot setback is knowing exactly where they are, and that's what the survey control is. To do.
And the one thing I would say is the beacon map, the GIS map is kind of it's an overview of properties and area. It keeps our survey department really busy because sometimes property lines go through buildings and the property lines aren't really there. So we've actually surveyed it and placed it where it is. They haven't encroached in that 1,000-foot setback. The map that you see is where they've gone through. So they've, other than the area that's been mined historically or stockpiled historically, they haven't gone beyond that at this point. It's,
So is that marked clearly? So
it is marked. I asked our surveyors, I said, did you, and they said you can see from point to point that setback that they did. So they have surveyed it and it is marked with white fibers that
is
you
that
can't
maybe
miss.
more of a problem if you got too close to the house or something?
Yep, and they don't intend to do that. So it is surveyed, so.
It sounds like the two parties are agreeing that this is a good thing. And it seems like a good thing.
You know, it's a way to, kind of a practical way to maintain the survey.
Are you proposing 0 setback?
Between the two, yes, they've already crossed over the two. If you look at, so yes, basically it's a 0 setback between the two quarries. It's the same operator. So it's easier to keep one scale house and, you know, so I think
They do
That-
crossover.
they do cross over.
What is the difference in elevation between the floors of the two quarries?
Oh, the sand quarry is higher than the rock quarry, for
The
sure.
sand quarry is higher.
The sand, I believe it's higher in the west and than the floor of the quarry, yes.
They submitted the full elevation for
The floor of the, yes, none of that'll change from the approved quarry.
to make sure it's.
Well, that was my concern, you know, if you're both working up to the line, whether if one's higher or lower than the other,
The other quarry isn't necessarily working up to the line. They're only allowed 20 acres total by their ordinance, so they're not, they own, I don't know how big that parcel is off the top of my head, but they're not working to that line. The quarry to the east was already over that line. So that's kind of what we're cleaning up is the quarry that Kurt owns, that operation has gone over the property line. But since the operator is the owner to the other quarry, they're, you know, they're not, it's not like they're neighbors that are mad at each other for it. So it's more of a operational thing than a mining thing.
What you're getting at is that at the end of the operation, there will still be maintained this barrier.
Between the two, they're not gonna blow it out, the rock will end it, obviously there's sand on one point and the other quarry is pulling the rock, so at some point that rock would end. They're not gonna continue to go west for the rock, because it's just not a saleable product.
And in the existing operations, you maintain that lip. That basically will.
yeah, that was my concern, is that there's some type of barrier between the two, of some sort.
Yeah, there will be a vertical wall between the two quarries.
Any other questions of the applicant? Well, we have here.
Or we should ask if there's any other public.
I was gonna get to that right. So I think you pretty much explained it, so if there's any comments from public about this, would this be the time?
My name is Richard Sterling. I'm a neighbor to the quarry. My question is, so with this here now, I understand this is kind of a deal between the two owners of the quarries and stuff and that. So now does this then allow them to be still doing processing of either sand or rock to their business, you might say? And I guess the other thing is that it's also just a little concerned about the blasting. I will say one thing as far as the blasting, it has been better with what has been happening. This is one thing I've been concerned about for quite a while and stuff. But it has been better and that, but every time there is blasting, there's a disturbance in the water. And that and even my neighbor lady, she, has been complained about her households and stuff like that. But yet again, we understand that we have to, give these people a chance to work with and make these products also. And, but I guess our blasting, that's the thing that we've been very concerned about. And we are happy that it has been in better control than what it used to be. And that, but so at that rate, then with this particular thing, it would then open up them to be able to come closer together with their operations. Is this what I understand? And that, that, yeah, and so, and then, but anyway, this is what my concern was, and that, so then we will still, be working with the blasting and things like that. But of course, the thing that does help for me, it is just a little further away from my side, you know. I guess my other concern is that maybe this is not great place to ask, but how much more does the rock, quarry? I understand they have their ground all pretty much, permitted, if I understand right. And that, and how much more is left for them to be able to work with yet? Is there much left or not?
Is it the one right on the gate here? No, down here. So they're pretty, they've got very little on the southwest left and the rest is to the northeast. So
Okay,
this is just kind of cleaning up what was going on in the northwest.
okay,
Very little in the southwest left. There's none in the southeast left. It's just to the northeast.
okay, okay,
That's
okay.
Well, could you kind of guesstimate in terms of number of years or time?
you know, if a big project
Depends on the
came, it could be
project.
5
That's
years,
true.
right? I mean,
Right.
it could be.
Yeah, you're right.
It's hard to.
Anyway, this is what I was just concerned about, that as far as now, there is, with the thing then, that it's mainly right now, it's between the two owners of the quarry and sand, is what I'm saying. So, thank you much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Satisfied with the findings of fact, everybody?
Number one, that the proposed use conforms to the Houston County land use plan.
We better take out a couple, we got some,
Oh, yep, you're right, you're right.
I'll make a motion, number 5 taken out. 13, 14.
Second, Greg's motion to take out the 3 items in the findings of fact.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Andy, number one, that the proposed use conforms to the Houston County land use plan. Staff analysis, need for aggregate is recognized in the comprehensive land use plan.
All those that agree with the analysis of number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number two, that the applicant demonstrates a need for the proposed use. Staff analysis. Mutual consent for setback provides a practical approach to controlling the setbacks in active work areas.
All those that agree with the analysis,
Aye.
any opposed?
Number three, that the proposed use will not degrade the water quality of the county. Staff analysis, the drainage from the JNC quarry and the Bruning quarry will not connect. An elevation buffer will be maintained separated.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number four, that the proposed use will not adversely increase the quantity of water runoff. Staff analysis, the proposal will not change site operation regarding water runoff.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I do have a question about that. How is that monitored?
The water runoff,
The amount of water runoff?
well,
Thank
There's
you.
really no water runoff on this site, it's also.
Okay.
So there's some little water ponds in the northeast corner, everything kind of drains. Rest of it's above the water table, but there itself.
Okay, great, thanks.
And it kind of looks like the public is monitoring the site a little bit, so probably be
Yeah,
okay.
thanks.
number six, that the that potential pollution hazards have been addressed and that standards have been met. Staff analysis, there are no anticipated pollution hazards associated with the proposal.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 7, that adequate utilities, access, road, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Staff analysis, no road revisions will occur and quarry drainage areas will stay separate and follow their existing drainage.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Number 8, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide sufficient on-street parking and loading space to serve the proposed use. Staff analysis, the activities related to this are exclusively within the quarries.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Number 9, that facilities are provided to eliminate any traffic congestion or traffic hazard which may result from the proposed use. The staff analysis, the site operation plan addresses the management of their equipment's activities.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 10, that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. Staff analysis, the setback amendments for the parcel will not be injurious to other property owners in the area. The influence on operation will be minimal.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Number 11, that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for predominant uses in the area. Staff analysis, the revisions to the site operations are minimal and should not have additional impact on surrounding properties.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 12, that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odors, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. Staff analysis, the proposed use will have minimal impact on site operations.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 15, that the site-specific conditions and such other conditions are established as required for the protection of the public's health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff analysis, site-specific conditions are only being modified where mutual consent has been given by both parties with the potential to be impacted.
All those that agree with that analysis, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would somebody like to make a motion to accept the findings of fact?
Second.
Roll call?
Greg Myrie,
Yes.
Cindy Wright,
Yes.
Wayne Feldmeyer,
Yes.
Ed Hamel,
Yes.
Jim Weezer,
Yes.
Barry Hafner,
Yes.
Josh Graham.
You want to read the conditions in the meeting?
There's basically just one condition that's being revised.
Yeah, I think so.
Here's the condition. The permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. The county, number 2, the county may enter on the premises at reasonable times in a reasonable manner to ensure the permit holders in compliance with the conditions and all other applicable statutes, rules, and ordinances. Number 3, condition 7 of the 2/28/2020 conditional use permit 417 is revised to the following language. The mine perimeter shall be surveyed and applicable setback shall be marked on the ground with posts such that each post is visible from each adjacent post. Property lines setback shall be 50 feet except for the west side of the parcel as shown in figure 2 below. That's the reference. Number 4, condition 6 of the 2/28/2020 conditional use permit 418 is revised to the following language. The mine perimeter shall be surveyed and applicable setback shall be marked on the ground with posts such that each post is visible from each adjacent post. Property line setback shall be 50 feet except for the west side of the parcel as shown in figure 2 below.
Would one be the left side and one be the east side?
No,
It's the west side.
it's, there's two permits on the east, the one on the west didn't have the setback condition, so that would be.
Okay.
But the quarry's over 40 acres, we had to have two separate CUPs.
Right. I
That's
was just
what,
thinking that
they're
they
both
put it up, and one be east and one be west, I guess is what I was thinking.
Like this.
Okay. Cool. Everybody agree with those, conditions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of conditional use permit of the amendments for mineral extraction egg protection district with the 4 conditions.
Second,
I'll second
we'll do a roll call.
Greg Myrie,
it. Yes.
Cindy Wright,
Yes,
Ian Feldmeyer.
Yeah.
Ed Hamel.
Yeah.
Jim Weaver,
Yes,
Larry Hoffman,
Yes.
Ralph Grant. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
It sounds like September 5th, is the
And that'll be September hearing for the board.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Yep, see you guys.
So the minutes from last meeting, somebody want to approve those or?
I'll make a motion to approve last meeting's minutes.
I'll second it. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
We adjourn.
No, we gotta do this hearing.
Oh, we got.
Sorry. We're gonna be here all night.
We got this.
Oh, this is, yeah. That's a.
We gotta be disgusting.
I like your idea. I know.
Let's go.
We got some other guys here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's on there. He looks like down there. He'll probably have. Talk to him.
unless there's something that.
We also have
Short.
John Lisa, the Health and Human Services Director, is listening in.
Okay.
He can comment if he wants. Basically, I guess we'll take the
Okay.
cannabinoid,
Is this something we're gonna talk about? or-
that one was with the first.
Okay.
Yeah. That was with or no, I'm sorry,
Talk
yeah,
about
it is, yes. Sorry, I was looking at.
Sorry.
You're keeping him on his toes, don't worry about
The first one we'll talk about is the cannabinoid rule, and what the proposal is, and John can certainly chime in, is that we're proposing a moratorium that will go into 2025. Because we're trying to figure out exactly how the rule is going to be implemented on the state level. So some counties have, Fillmore County jumped in, they've done a number of things. And Sam is, our county attorney, is proposing this moratorium as a mechanism that we can continue to look at it. Also noted in your packets there, I kind of highlighted in yellow some of the board, some of the issues that come along, but there certainly are ordinance issues as they relate to zoning. So if you're kind of wondering why this really lands in that category, one of the duties of, sorry, the handout.
Okay.
That should have the copy of the ordinance. And then there will be,
When I heard.
there should be hold on.
Got it.
There should be a couple pages there. Yep, okay, yeah, that's it, and in that.
This one looks like this on top.
Oh, okay.
State the fellow part of that. No, it's not in the board. That's the.
He's got one, it's stuck together.
The proposed ordinance is basically or not, sorry. The idea with where the planning commission gets involved is that planning commission addresses basically controls that go along with activities as they relate to zoning and other activities. So that's where you're involved to provide your input that will go to the Board of Commissioners for, consideration when they're going to adopt the rules. So that's kind of the idea, but John, do you have anything you can chime in with?
Yeah, I guess I'd add that, as I understand the new, adult use cannabis law that passed the legislature this year provides, stipulation that, in addition to getting a state license to sell, you need local permitting. So I think that's what Marty is talking about, is a mechanism locally to determine, things with regard to, land use and such that fit within the structure of the newly established law. I think the draft ordinance that Sam has relates to public use, and it's a model ordinance from the State County Attorneys Association. So those would be some things that I know, or I've got some insight on.
So you're talking about a moratorium for till 2025,
Yes.
like in January 25, or how you,
It's,
That'd be through 25, wasn't it? Through the end of 25, or was it? Otherwise, it's only gonna be 1 year, but,
January.
January 1st.
January
So it's 1
1st.
year, basically.
The state anticipates that putting together the State Office of Cannabis Management is going to take until about then before any licenses would be available. So the state will be licensing all of the dispensaries for adult use cannabis, and you would need to have a license from them. But they anticipate that that won't be in place and ready for businesses to participate in until probably the beginning of 2025.
So it seems like kind of a foolish thing to get into the business before it's ready.
Indians did.
What's that?
The Indians did up north. They're selling it already.
Okay. It sounds like Houston County is not so much interested in doing it.
No.
How soon do we want action on this? I'd like to read through this before we act on it.
Well, I guess we can talk with Sam, but I mean, is it a case you'd like to get up at the next meeting? You think it's one? Or
That's what I propose that. So
I don't know as though we didn't lock in the schedule with the Board of Commissioners in terms of timing forward. So I think we can go to one. John, do you have any
I've got no problems with that. I think we have the benefit of time here since it's anticipated it's going to be quite a while before licenses are available. And so I think we have the benefit of time and giving you all the opportunity to read through what Sam has prepared and think through what your questions are. I think that's a prudent move.
So let's just make a motion. Somebody want to make a motion to table this until the next meeting?
That's just a question. So,
okay, John? Probably
like, I know I stopped at the liquor store in the Crescent, and they're selling something now that they didn't previously sell.
Yeah.
Is this what we're talking about? Like cannabis related stuff?
They're selling it all over right now.
But it's not like you need a license to sell it, or you could just don't care.
The licensing stuff, I don't have an answer.
So I've got a little bit of insight on that. There's kind of three categories here. There's been a CBD market where you see places that have CBD oil and things like that have no cannabis or THC, which is the part of the plant that gets you high. So CBD doesn't include any of that. And that's been legal, and you see that in many different places around the state for quite some time. In 2022, the legislature passed THC edibles, so you can have gummies and infused beverages. However, they didn't provide any kind of licensing structure through the state, and that's part of what then was addressed in this 2023 legislation. So I think some of the places that are selling THC gummies or infused beverages, that would be under that 2022 legislation, which is legal, but does not require licensing. As I understand it, the 2023 legislation that legalizes adult use cannabis will bring those THC gummies and infused beverages into the same licensing environment, beginning as soon as that Office of Cannabis Management is up and operational.
But they're not now.
Yeah, they are.
Well, they're not supposed to. But I think
Well, to be clear, and this isn't a statement as to whether I support or don't support, the law that passed in 2022 does make it legal for people to sell and to purchase THC gummies and infused beverages. And there's certain criteria as far as how much can be in each serving and how many servings in a packet and a whole bunch of those things. However, there's no oversight from the state in that 2022 legislation, and there's no licensing. And there are a number of retailers across the state that are selling THC gummies and other edibles, if you will. The 2023 legislation that just passed is a full adult use cannabis, where you have dispensaries and you can buy a variety of different marijuana plants. You have the legal ability to have up to 8 plants in your home and have up to 2 pounds in your home. All of those have been made legal in this 2023 legislation, but the sale of the product and distribution, that's something that's going to be managed by this state office, and that's not going to be up and operational. So you can have those additional cannabis products legally up to a point, but you can't sell them or purchase them in the state of Minnesota until those licensed distributors are up and operational.
I don't think you realize what you're getting into.
So they are,
You don't have a clue what's going on here. Cause these guys are gonna take off, they're gonna move out in the country. Cause I've had neighbors that do this. And they'll grow their own weed, they'll smoke ragweed if they can. And I've watched them do it. And you know what? They got a permit from Houston County. Now my neighbor got a permit for a chicken coop below his house. He built it out of an A-frame. And you know what? He lived in the upstairs and the chickens heated it. Now, if you guys want to see some real crap, that's what you're going to see. And if you guys legalize this shit, that's just what you're going to see around the whole county.
You know, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just going to say that the state of Minnesota through the legislature has already legalized it. It's not something that the county or the county board is acting on, and it's certainly not something that I'm recommending. This is more as a response to action that's occurred already at the legislature.
are you saying that they can have the gummies now, but once this is implemented, they'll have to register that? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so they will retroactively, or not retroactive, but at some point, they're gonna say, you can't do this anymore until you register it.
Correct. And that would be through the state, that the state would license those establishments. The county won't license them. However, there's a provision that allows permitting at a local level. That, I think, is why it's something that's coming to your table as it relates to a land use, where you cite these things, and that sort of thing.
Because we have no control over any of what the cities do. Like Caledonia, they can issue a license for CBD. And how many can they have? Does anybody have approved? Can you have 10 of them? Can you have 5?
Based on population. In your area.
That's for the marijuana, but for the CBD, what's the
Oh, I
difference?
don't know.
So what are you saying? Cities have a different ordinance, state ordinance than the county does.
City made their own ordinance to get these shops in town.
Well, I think the smartest thing we can do, let the cities have it in the city. Because we don't want it out in the country.
But this, what you're talking about is state. What the state is gonna control.
Correct. So again, to be clear, this isn't something that the county or even cities have legalized. They've only been given the right to have the THC gummies and infused beverages, those types of things, because of the 22 legislative action that made those types of products legal starting in 2022. Those are different than CBD, which you see in different places. Those have no THC in them. Those are like, I don't know, lotions and different kinds of things that have CBD oil in it that apparently has some medicinal purposes, but it doesn't provide any kind of high because there's no THC in it. Those have been legal for a long time. But the THC infused edibles and beverages, that was made legal by act of the Minnesota legislature in the 2022 legislative session. This most recent legislative session, a full adult use cannabis bill passed. That's now law. If you live anywhere in the state of Minnesota, you can legally have up to 2 pounds of marijuana in your house. You can grow up to 8 plants. But the sale of marijuana is a marketplace that the state is going to manage. So Minnesota became the 23rd state that legalized adult recreational marijuana. They're not the first to do this. I think the idea of being in front of you guys is to think through, what do you want to do as it relates to recommending to the county board related to where these types of establishments could or should be cited.
So you get 8 plants per husband and 8 plants per wife? Well, there's nobody, somebody asked me that the other day. I assume, is it a household 8 plants?
I assume this is like all ordinances. We can be more restrictive than the state, but not less.
Yes.
Actually, it's not, because the state has made it so that the local entities can't restrict the legal use of these products. So the state was real clear in not wanting, or the legislature didn't want to create essentially dry counties where a county or a city could say, you know what, we're just not going to allow it. So there are, however, in the statute, as I understand it, provisions that allow local governments to weigh in on permitting, and not whether or not they can sell it, but how you permit it, the place and manner and those types of things that have to do with land use and the sort of things that you guys look at for conditional use permits and the like.
And to Greg's point, we're a county
Yep.
zoning deal. We're not, none of the cities are.
We can't do that.
So that's all we can.
Right, so cities may have different restrictions that they'll put together on this, and yeah.
Can we put it in the ordinance that it's 8 plants per household? Because all of a sudden, we're gonna have people growing 25 to 50 plants out there, and my brother-in-law, he lives in this shed, and my other brother-in-law lives in this shed, and all of a sudden, we got 35 plants a pot. Can we do an ordinance that says only 8 plants per household?
Well, that's,
We
I
got.
believe that that's the statute.
Well, we ain't got no control.
the state's already done that.
Yeah, but is it 8 per person or 8 per household?
Well, we'll have to look at the ordinance to see what they said.
We could do that in our own ordinance, couldn't we? Couldn't we put
Well,
that
if
in?
we need to, if the state hasn't properly defined it, then we maybe want to.
So does anybody in the audience want to speak to this? Is that why anybody is here or not?
Can you restrict?
You can come forward and just kind
Come on up here and
of say your piece.
My name is Tim Gunn, G1N. Can you restrict the sale of it? You know, if a store wants to sell it, I mean, you can't restrict some things based on what was said.
But you can control your retail of it, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, but if you got,
You can
everybody's
certainly
got 6 or 8 plants at home,
I-
you ain't gonna have no control over it.
Well, there's a difference between possession, what an individual can possess, and what people can sell. And so I think this is related not so much to what people can possess. That's already outlined in the statute. This is about, what I understand of the statute is it allows local governments to restrict this to the point that there's only 1 per 12,500 of population. And you can also have some say as to, just like the gentleman who came in is giving comment, as to where you cite businesses and where you allow certain things to be sold and different things that you consider as it relates to citing some of this. Some of it, the statute already addresses as far as distance from schools and things like that. But you may want some other things that you want to consider. And I suggest that you get legal advice to make sure that you're not moving beyond what the statute allows.
What's the population of Houston County?
18,800 some,
So only 2,
actually 1.
well,
Or 2 for 2.
12,500, there'd be some.
Another thing to also realize too, like, there are certain parts of our rules that already would be applicable potentially for like a business and that type of activity. So there may be a little bit that's already in place just by virtue of them being a business. So there would be some controls that are not all.
So what I was looking at, so in Caledonia, you might be able to restrict it to 1 location.
Well,
And that location,
In Houston County.
realize we're
you count.
in the county, but the city of Caledonia has their own. We're talking in the context of the townships.
Okay.
So the licensing is done through this office that's going to manage the sale, basically, not the growing.
But if
But
the
this-
county restricted it to just 1 location based on population, then that would pretty much tie the hands. 6 would be, yeah.
Well,
You know,
cities
just-
have different ordinance.
Pardon?
Cities have different ordinance.
That's all one population.
But in Houston County, we could hold it to 1.
Yeah.
So,
Correct.
Based on the fact-
yes, based on the population. Unless they change the rules down the road, who knows?
Basically, you're gonna see so many people go out and just put seeds in the ground. They're gonna have their own pot parties. We've
Well, they're
seen
gonna-
that for years here.
They're gonna grow their own. The
Yeah.
issue I was looking at was from the standpoint of kids
Yeah,
being able to, I mean, you can't control families, but if you can control what a retail establishment does to some level, that's all I'm asking as a resident, that not every store in the county can sell gummies and soda with, it's infused. I think you're running into chaos.
I think they can now, can't they? I mean, they can.
Can they do it? I
see
think
them
they
done,
can.
though.
They can, because there's
That's maybe city, not county. I
It's
don't know.
CBD, not THC.
THC infused.
there's 2 different places in Houston. You can pick up marijuana right now.
No, I believe it.
All
I'm
right,
looking
now how
at,
are you gonna control those guys?
I'm looking at this, the
You
control
mean
of
they can do
retail.
this legally or illegal?
And they can do it, they've been doing it illegal for years.
Well, that's.
Well, once the ordinance comes down from the state, then there will be a framework involved where people can prosecute the facilities.
You guys, this doesn't make any sense, cause when I'd go to a party, the pot was upstairs, the beer was downstairs. I mean, let's get real with this.
No, I'm with you. I'm coming from a background of law enforcement in the Chicago area. And once it gets out of control, it's out of control. And the other thing, now I'm currently on the school board in town. My concern is it gonna be allowed if somebody is walking through sitting on the swing at the school
Yeah,
playground, drinking pop that's infused with alcohol with all the infused with THC, with all the kids around. I would think there'd be an ordinance or a law that can be put in place that controls if you can't do that.
You know,
Or you go to
That's
another park.
actually, sir, that's actually what the model ordinance that Sam suggested is talking about is public use. And so you know, not being able to use marijuana products anywhere where minors can inhale it and different things like that. And it's something that's come from the state attorney or state county attorneys association. I think your point as it relates to those who sell in a, or, you know, that they have a place of business that's licensed. You know, others who've commented, you can't control, or I don't know that this is intended to try and control every person that would ever plant a seed. The law now allows people to have up to 8 plants and to have 2 pounds in their home. And, you know, whether that's considered like Commissioner Myrie said, you know, is that for every person? I don't know the specifics of that. It's a new statute that we're still learning about. But what this was intended to focus on was preparing the county for when the licensing that's done by the state is in place and what types of controls you'd like to have around those types of businesses. You can't say they can't exist, but you can have some control as to where they're sited and where they are and you know, conditions that they would need to meet to be able to do that legally under a permit in Houston County.
I've got a question. As it is right now, we do building permits for residents, as does the city. But the city follows a different ordinance than the county does. Is that going to be the same, you think, when it gets implemented? Will they have a different restriction or a different ordinance than the county has?
I think that's possible, and that's where I would defer to legal counsel as to how that statute is interpreted. But I think, you know, Commissioner Myrie was saying that the different cities may have different ordinances that allow things, and the county board will be responsible for all the areas that aren't part of a city. But I can't say that conclusively. I'm not a lawyer. I haven't given this legal assessment, but I think there's the potential that you'll have different ordinances, just like you do for building, that cities allow certain things that maybe in the townships or in the county they don't, or vice versa.
Could we set it up so that if somebody wants a permit for a house, that they can't have marijuana?
I don't know.
Well, how about like now, if they're gonna give out permits for people to grow this so they can sell it to these dispensaries, how many of them are we gonna let go in Houston County?
Yeah,
Can we
that's another
control that? Can we say you can't have more than 5 growers in Houston County, or can we not?
Yeah, I don't know. The grower question is a really good one. I don't know the answer to that question. What I've seen, most of the analysis on this is more related to the people who merchandise it, or they're actually selling it to the public, not those who are distributing it to those merchants. But presumably it'd have to be grown somewhere, right?
Yeah, the supply come from someplace.
Right,
Well,
and so,
It's like an agricultural crop. At that point, it can be sold anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, that the person would grow it to make money. You know, so
Right.
that's how
You
this-
could sell it at the farmer's market.
And they probably do.
Maybe they'll do like tobacco. They used to restrict how many farmers could have you had a tobacco allotment. You could have so many acres of tobacco. If they follow that way to do it.
Can it be compared to a liquor license that you allow or don't allow? And usually in towns, they only have X number of liquor license available.
Well, that's.
Can you
that's not-
control it the same way?
I think that's a good analogy.
I would hope they.
So I would think you could control it
Go through the township.
by how many licenses you allow the retailers in your town or county to have, correct?
Yeah.
Right, I think that's a very good analogy. The only thing that would be a caveat is you can't say you can't have any dispensaries. And you can restrict it to 1 per 12,500 of population. But I think your analogy of a liquor license is is a good analogy for how I would anticipate this will end up rolling out on the sale side of this. I apologize, I don't know much about the producing side of it.
And then on the consumption, like right now, you can't just walk down the block anywhere drinking a beer. Can you control?
Yeah.
Like when the smokable type is out and about, which it will be, can you control, make that illegal to be consumed smoking in a playground or a church playground or, I mean, if those restrictions can be in place, then you can only control what you can control.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think the model ordinance that Sam is proposing is about, is that very thing. Just like you can't walk around and drink anywhere you want, there would be similar laws as it relates to the public consumption of marijuana plants or products and the restrictions around that.
Well, I think we should table this. I think there's a lot of questions that we need answered.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Anybody else want to speak while we're here?
I think we ought to make a rule that anybody that caught with any marijuana plants or anything like that, we should be able to make a rule that we take care of them right away. You know, try and take care of them. Well, it's like this. Because you're gonna see household after household. Okay, I had neighbors living down about a mile down the road from me. I would go down in the evening just to see what they were up to, because they had land right by mine. And they would be out cold by 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Slept well today?
No, it was terrible.
Well, I mean, everything alcohol is the problem.
No, it wasn't alcohol.
Well, I know, but I mean,
Well,
everything,
you guys remember little Oscar? Little Oscar used to live down by me. And he drowned in the flood because he didn't have brains enough to walk out of it. Well, this is no kidding. The guys that were at my place first, they bought horses. And they came and told me that they were going to be cowboys. And a year later, they're riding around. They had, this is no kidding, they had those big coffee cans. They'd shoot squirrels with a 22, and they put that whole squirrel, they skin it and put it in a coffee can and try to eat it off a fire. I mean, you've never seen anything so stupid. I actually told the one cop, I says, they're not going to make it here another winter. The one guy froze to death across the river over by Baroka. He was just out there walking and he just froze to death.
there's not much we can do about that.
Well, yeah, there is. Because you know what? They built this A-frame. And when the new people bought the A-frame, I took them down there and I used to let them hunt on mine. Well, they went down there one day and they got a permit to burn that, burn up the A-frame. So I let them both walk up the hill to get their deer stands. And I lit that A-frame on fire and I took care of the thing right there.
I'll make a motion to table this till next month.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye, so until next month, and we've got some reading to do.
You got some good questions from us, so you can talk to Sam.
And then I still have the no wait.
Okay, let's go to the no wait.
This will be.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank
What's happened with the no wake zone, we did get approval from the Minnesota DNR to allow no wake zone in Shore Acres, which will go from 16 all the way up to the swing bridge, and that's what the maps are totally showing. What
It's
it is-
okay though.
Sorry?
That's a good zone.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking for is your recommendation that, and I'd like to get a vote. From
Well,
you
that's kind
guys.
of your area down there, Cindy. You hear any
Yeah.
people talking about it?
Oh, yeah, it's been an issue.
Yeah.
So if there's more of an ordinance, it's gonna be
And so,
enforceable.
but what I'd like to do is get a recommendation from you, and then I would take it to the Board of Commissioners and we'll adopt the ordinance.
Okay.
And we'll get the buoys installed and we will put a sign. It will be on the south side of the eastbound lane of the Highway 16 bridge that talks about the no wake zone that you're entering. So sign right there too.
And there are a lot of
Travel
houses along
going.
there too.
Who enforces that?
The, the both.
Yeah.
It will be the sheriff's office will do it, and that was the one condition that the put in, that they can also enforce that rule, so.
Houston County has a river boat that goes around and does this stuff, so.
And there is more to come on this. We'll see how this plays out, but what I was told by Wisconsin DNR was if our rule matches their rule, that's what we did with this, is that the initial activity that occurred, we said we'd like to go halfway across the river. And they were like, well, we don't know where halfway is. And so part of it was just trying to figure out exactly where it is based on the references and those type of things. But what they have is, they have a no wake in effect, but it's for areas that are developed. And the Gunderson property, which is across from Shore Acres, is not developed. So that's where their part does not have the no wakes. But what we did is we took their language and said, okay, we will do that, but Shore Acres is developed. So there's kind of the nuance there. But they basically were saying that in that instance, they can potentially even enforce as well.
That makes it easier for them to actually enforce it.
But I can tell you the DNR in the process bunch.
Yeah,
What are you looking for tonight? I'm a little,
Basically, we're looking for a recommendation that if you're okay with the proposed rule.
I'm kind of,
And then we would.
I don't like to look at something and not be able to,
You want to read it?
I want to read it and, I mean, just for general, how you do things.
Okay.
I would like to read it over and.
Okay.
Cause the county's gotta take care of it. They gotta go out, they gotta put the buoys out, they gotta go take them back out in the fall. And then we have a river patrol, and they're gonna do most of the patrolling of it.
You said from 16 to the swing bridge?
Yep.
There's some down, or well, I guess the downriver from there that's county's property.
This is exclusively to that area. That's all the DNR agreed to.
Okay.
Cause it's a little cut.
Because there is some, you've probably never been there, because I've never been there, land that's Houston County, but you gotta get to it on the river.
Yeah, no, it's how a lot of this evolved is there's a number of people on Shore Acres that are the bass tournaments and the fishing boats are really moving pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
And they're knocking little kids off. Lily pads, and stuff like that. And people are like, this is crazy. There've been a number of incidences, especially like the jet ski incidents out in the main channel. And that's the last thing they want.
it's very narrow, that
It is, it's 400.
area of water is narrow,
420,
yes.
440 feet across.
Yeah, how deep is that there? I don't know.
It's not that deep.
Isn't it?
Jack Miller said you can't even get up in there to fish.
So is there a time issue that we're supposed to do this soon?
Ideally, we would like it to be as soon as possible, but in terms of, we would like to go to the county, go to the board of commissions with it.
How does everybody feel about it? Does everybody feel ready to vote?
I think it's pretty much a cut and dry deal.
I just don't like to say.
It's the DNR across the river. I'm ready to
I
vote.
could,
I guess-
I think we should just vote on it and be
I
done.
guess my
because
thought is, it seems, to me, it's kind of cut and dried, I guess.
It basically, the entire rule is for the distance from the Highway 16 bridge to the swing bridge. Go out 100 feet from the ordinary high water line, and that there would be a no wake zone in effect. And that's, the ordinance is, actually, it should be in the packet here.
And you have the map here, right,
Right.
too?
The other thing, I think it's limited by the DNR's approval or what they will do, so it's sort of, it's gonna be this way. There's not much change to it.
No.
I think it's pretty much cut and dried, Ed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
I can abstain. I just don't like to,
Do it this season.
I just don't like to have somebody put something in front of me and they sign it.
Just saw that reference. I think that 2022 legislation, what we just talked about, was exactly for that reason, right? I heard at least, I don't know if it's a fact, that half the people didn't read the bill, somebody buried that THC deep. in
Is that right?
And that's how it got approved. People found out after they voted on it, what they approved.
That's very possible.
That's what I heard how it worked. And it was this scenario, luckily our bills are thousand pages,
You
but
know, what I mean, it's the page in,
yeah,
Yeah.
in a lot of it are the definitions.
Well, unless you want to go through it and we can review it.
I'm certainly.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, that way Larry will be a little more
Yeah,
updated.
no, let's take a
Yeah.
look at it.
Go to it, Martin, and
Okay.
that way
All
Larry
right,
will
well,
be.
section one says,
Yep.
the following words and phrases when used in this ordinance at the following meetings. Boat is any watercraft as defined in Minnesota statutes 86B 005 sub D 18. Motorboat means any boat propelled by machinery as defined in Minnesota statutes 86B 005 sub D 9. The Mississippi River between miles 698 and 699 and all bodies of water that together with their connecting channels are part of the Mississippi River located within County of Houston, state of Minnesota. Map thereof is on file in the office of the Houston County Engineer, Houston County Auditor, and is attached to the original draft of this ordinance, which is what I was referring to with Highway 16. Person includes an individual, partnership, association, corporation, or any body or persons. Slow minimum wake speed means the operation of a motorboat at less than the planing speed whereby the wash or wake created by the motorboat is minimal and in no case a speed of more than 5 miles per hour. The West Channel Bridge refers to the Highway 1461 bridge across the west backwater channel of the Mississippi River at the Minnesota-Wisconsin state line and adjacent to the DNR Sportsman's Boat Landing. Section 2, in the interest of public safety, public health, safety, and general welfare, the following regulations are imposed upon all motorboats operated, placed, or maintained in the Mississippi River between mile 698 and mile 699, being that part of the Mississippi River and its connecting channels within the boundaries of Houston County, Minnesota. 1, no person shall operate a motorboat at greater than a slow minimum wake speed within 100 feet of the shore in the west backwater channel of the Mississippi River between the West Channel Bridge near River Mile 698 and the main channel entrance near Mile 699. Section 2, motorboats utilized by government agencies and rescue craft while on official business shall be exempt from the provisions of this ordinance. Section 3, the sheriff of Houston County is authorized and directed to inform the public by official notification as well as by posting and buoying the west backwater channel of the Mississippi River between the West Channel Bridge near River Mile 698 and the main channel entrance near Mile 699. The Houston County Sheriff's Office, and this was the change that the DNR put in, and Minnesota conservation officers are authorized and entitled to enforce the provisions of this ordinance. Section 4, penalties. Any person who shall violate any of the provisions of this ordinance shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. In Section 5, effective date, this ordinance shall become effective upon its passage and publication.
It's a safety issue. I think we should
Mhm.
consider acting. on this.
Okay, I'm fine.
It seems like a
Right.
Yeah, just all it is slow boaters down.
Yeah.
Bass fishermen come up there just a roaring with them big boats. And that's what they're trying to do is slow them guys down.
Just be horrible to have an accident happen while we're considering whether it should be or shouldn't. What's the other end?
That's kind of the leverage I use against them to get a conundrum.
Mhm, mhm.
I'll make a motion that we go with the no wakes.
I'll second it.
Do a roll call
Roll call vote.
vote. Okay. Greg Myrie,
Yes.
Cindy Wright,
Yes,
Lindsey Belmeyer,
Yes.
Ed Helmut,
Yes.
Jim Weezer,
Yes,
Larry Haffner.
Yeah,
yes.
What that will do is I will put that in front of the board, which will be set under step with the recommendation written up about as proposed.
Let's try that adjourn thing again.
I'll make a motion we adjourn. Third, fourth.
All in favor? All right. That should do the trick.
Well,